What up, YouTube? Here with a post-fight video of the Zhilei Zhang versus Joyce fight. Now, before I give y'all the summary of what happened in the fight, I'm going to tell y'all the results first. Zhang was able to win this fight via 6-round TKO. The doctors had suggested the referee to call a stop to the bout due to the fact that Joyce's right eye was swelled shut and that orbital bone and the bruising that was starting to get worse as the fight went on was causing a concern on Joyce's part, hence why the referee called a halt to the bout. And to sum up what happened in the fight, how it looked, it was quite one-sided because of the power difference and the shots that was landed in this fight. However, I had the fight score prior to the stoppage 48-47. I gave the third and the fifth round to Joyce. The third round was when Joyce started to come more forward towards Zhang, and he started to throw more at will and started to fight more like himself because he couldn't maul at Zhang the way he usually fights because of the power of Zhang, and that's why he couldn't fight like himself for a majority of this fight. And in the fifth round, Zhang was playing possum, setting up baits for Joyce, and that's why I gave the fifth round to Joyce. Zhang was more on the relaxing part, where Zhang was on the retreat and saving his stamina for, I guess, the later rounds of the fight. And Joyce, he showed technical flaws in this fight. His conditioning is excellent, as well as his power and his aggressiveness and his come forward style. And he couldn't display all of that in this fight because of the shots that was landing at Joyce, and it was landing at will. You look at the punch stat numbers, I think Zhang was landing about over 50% of his punches that he was throwing at Joyce. And Joyce, another good part that he has, a part of his arsenal, is his ability to change levels when it comes to his punches being put together. And the technical flaw that he showed in this fight was definitely him having trouble keeping his head off the center line, and his upper body and head movement, as well as footwork. And Zhang definitely showed that in this fight, with him stopping Joyce at his tracks with that 1-2 and that right hook, as well as that straight left. And that was the most successful shots that was coming from Zhang in this fight versus Joyce. And Zhang, this definitely catapults him to the next level, definitely makes his name more marketable and brandable and more notable to the boxing fans and to the mass majority, the public that's not really tapped into the sport of boxing like that, because Joyce, especially out there in England, has got a well-recognizable name and is a household name out there. And for Zhang to get a win over a fighter like Joyce is a good look for Zhilei Zhang. And Joyce, before this fight, he was talked about to possibly challenge either Tyson Fury or Alexander Usyk for one of the heavyweight titles, and now that kind of delays his chase at the world heavyweight titles, and this catapults Zhang on a better chance at challenging for one of the heavyweight titles. Because this fight actually was supposed to be a step-up fight for Joe Joyce to carry on with his hype at being a top contender amongst the top of the heavyweights. And this fight and this result kind of derailed that run that Joe Joyce was on. And now the interim WBO heavyweight champion is Zhang, and that means he's next in line to challenge for the WBO heavyweight title, which is held by Alexander Usyk. And Zhang, prior to this fight, he was coming off a decision loss to Hrgovic, and maybe a rematch versus Hrgovic would be a good look on Zhang's part if he doesn't get a title shot for the WBO title versus Alexander Usyk for his next fight, because Alexander Usyk, who majority of boxing fans want to see fight Tyson Fury for the undisputed heavyweight title next, the negotiations for that fight coming to terms, they couldn't come to an agreement to make that fight happen. That's why now both Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk is looking for a replacement opponent to defend their heavyweight titles against next for their next fight. And it's talked about that Tyson Fury might fight Andy Ruiz, former heavyweight champion, next. However, I heard the negotiations for that fight, neither parties couldn't come to an agreement with that fight as well. And if y'all look at Tyson Fury's last fight versus Derek Chisora, Joe Joyce, who was in attendance for that fight, and he showed himself at the post-fight interview when Tyson Fury was talking about his possible next fight and had that face-off versus Alexander Usyk, and Joe Joyce was ringside as well. Now that Zhang got this win over Joyce, possibly he could challenge Tyson Fury for the heavyweight titles that Tyson Fury holds, regardless of the fact that he's the interim WBO champion, the mandatory challenger for one of the belts that Alexander Usyk holds. And as far as Joe Joyce, he can look to get back on the redemption road and build his momentum back up, and that could call for him to have fights versus journeyman heavyweight fighters to get back on track. And Joe Joyce could fight somebody like the likings of Jermaine Franklin, Dillian White, or Otto Wallin, and that would be a good comeback fight versus worthwhile opponents in the future for Joe Joyce to build back up. And if Zhang, as I said, doesn't get a title shot for his next fight, he could have a fight versus maybe an Anthony Joshua, a Dillian White, and names of that liking for his next fight, because it wouldn't make sense for Zhang to step down when it comes to a level of competition. Anyways, y'all let me know what y'all opinions are from this fight that y'all saw with Zhilei Zhang and Joe Joyce. Comment, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. And that does it for this video. Out of here, y'all. Peace.